Okay, very excited. We have a new feature for Streamlined. It's called the Custom Events API, and I'm just going to show you a little demo of how this actually works. So basically what we have here is in our metric builder on our dashboard, we have an events metric, and this is pulling from the underlying events that you can send directly to Streamlined. And so in this case, we are just counting how many payment received events have we gotten in this time period. And so I'll hit save, and bam, we have two. And so these custom events are really most helpful for tracking timestamp data that you normally couldn't get, because let's say we wanted to track how many opportunities hit a certain stage or beyond that in our pipeline. There's really no way to do that. The only thing we can filter on is when that opportunity was last updated or when the stage was last changed, but that doesn't have much granularity, and it can kind of skew numbers in a way that you might not want them to. And so for things like payments received, of course you could use opportunities for this, but that can be kind of a hassle. Custom events provide a much better solution. Another example would be if you wanted to track when a specific tag was added or how many contacts had this specific tag added in the last week. Like for instance, if it's sending an offer to them or making an offer to them, or actually closing them, or anything like that that is hard to track with opportunities or other events, we can do that with the custom events API. So in this case, the way we're sending these custom events is just using workflows, and this is actually basically free to send these events. So what you're going to want to do is you can create a workflow and you can add any trigger that you want. Let's say we wanted to do tag added, and we could add a filter to make it so that when a tag 1 to 3 locations is added, then we run this workflow. I'm not going to actually add that, but here's some examples of sending this. So we're going to send a post request to this endpoint, which is receiver.streamline.so/custom events/ingestion/v1. And we're going to set our headers. This is important. This is the x-api-key. And in here, you'll put your API key. So right now, there's no interface to create an API key. You just have to ask me, basically. But I can create an API key for you and just send it over, and then you can use that in all your sub accounts. And the event data that we're going to send, we have these 3 required fields. So firstly, event name. Actually, let me show you something. This is very kind of heavily modeled after PostHog. And so PostHog allows us to send custom events. So we can basically capture events from our website or our backend or wherever, and we just say posthog.capture, and this, you just attach a name for the event. And so this is kind of what we're modeling after. So you would attach an event name, and this is kind of your primary filter for looking at these events. Then the next thing is the distinct ID. This is a required field, and this allows you to deduplicate events. So for instance, trial started with a contact. That might be something that only happens once. If it happens multiple times, we could just add another custom field, and we could do right now dot whatever. We could do like the full date, and then basically that would only, that event, even if it fired again, it would create a separate event. Then the other thing that's required is the location ID. So every event is going to be under a specific sub account, and this basically is easy to get. You can just use the template here with location.id. Then finally here, we have the contact ID, which is an optional field, and this allows you to tie a custom event to a specific contact, which is useful for filtering on contact fields like who the contact is assigned to or who's following the contact, when the contact was created. And also it means deletes will cascade from the contact down to the custom events. So if you have custom events for a contact and then you delete that contact, those custom events will also disappear. And then you can see in this case, we're also adding our API key. This is required, and you'll just have to reach out and ask me to create an API key for you. And you just set it as a header X API key. And then the other thing that we can send here is if you look at PostHog, they let you send custom details or properties, as they're called, with a custom event. And the way we achieve that is very similar. One way to do it is using the custom webhook action in a workflow. So this is a premium action. It does cost about a cent per execution, but we send to the same endpoint with the same API key, And in this case, we're just typing out our payload. And so we have all the same properties as that free webhook. But in this case, we're adding the properties field. And so we're saying basically the product is, this big money product, and the amount is this much. And so in this case, this would be like capturing a payment for a product called with this name and then this amount. And right now we can't actually filter or aggregate these properties in the dashboard, but this is kind of future proofing it so that in the future we're able to aggregate and display these properties in the dashboard. So you could say like how much revenue are we making per product, and then what's our average ticket per product, things like that. So if you want to track those, you can. Just know, you won't be able to view them for a while. Basically, we're waiting on a lot of people to adopt this. And so that's how you would do it with a custom webhook. Now, there is also a free way to do that. It's a little bit more tedious, but you can see we have basically the same event here. But what we're doing is we're tacking on a properties field, and we're just typing out the JSON manually. So this can be a little bit tedious. But the system will basically see this and try to parse it, and if it fails, you'll get an error, so you definitely want to make sure to test the workflow. But this should actually work to make it free if you want to send properties as well. And the way we view this, what we can do is for something like a payment event, firstly we would filter our events based on the name, and then we can either, because these can be tied to contacts, we can either use the total count of events or total unique contacts that have this event. And in this case, if we know the value of our payment event, we can just multiply this by a number to get our overall value. So you can see it's 190 because we had 2 underlying events. And then we can basically just multiply that by 95 to get the total estimated value. So yeah, this should be really helpful for viewing basically timestamp data that's hard to get otherwise, like when a tag was added or how many appointments were rescheduled, anything like that. So yeah, that's really all there is to it. Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed.